has grown into an economic superpower in a matter of decades, and nearly 800 million people have been lifted out of poverty in just 40 years. Now, the big question is, how did China create the economic miracle, and how can it be sustained?
China has reached inflection point.
For more than 2 decades, China's economy has been the dependable engine for global economic growth
than anywhere else in the world.
Some foreign media and institutes say that China's economic miracle is ending.
It's funny. I mean, I've been writing on China's economy for 30 years. And there's a whole industry which says that China's economy is about to collapse or about to enter crisis next year. Well, let's say if we take the last 2 years, as I said, China's economy has grown 5 times as fast as the US economy.
Actually, China's economic growth miracle is not over, but entering its second half. On the one hand, we will still maintain a medium to high potential growth rate, but in the meantime, shift to a pattern of high quality development.
What factors do you think are contributive to China's rapid and stable economic growth in the past decades?
Well, the most important factor is actually the leadership of the Communist Party of China and the socialist economic system within China, because it's to understate the situation, say it's sound and stable. China has created an economic system which is superior to anyone else in the world. That's its socialist economic system, which was created by the reform and opening up in 1978.
China's national planning is a new type of planning. It is different from the traditional economic planning. It can be organically combined with the market economy and solve many problems caused by market failure, making national development stay in a more coordinated, sustainable, and healthier state. This is an important institutional advantage. Under the conditions of a market economy, we can't actually artificially control the total amount of supply and demand. But in fact, we can still predict in advance and do some policy guidance. For instance, the 14th five-year plan is to emphasize the expansion of domestic demand because we see the problem of weakening demand and arranged more investment projects in advance.
China's economy has witnessed huge changes due to the reform and opening up policy in the past decades. What do you think is the core mechanism of the reform and opening up policy? How did it contribute to China's economic development?
The core mechanism is that China proceeds from the fact that division of labor is the most fundamental force in economic development. This means that the economy has to be internationally open, not attempting to be protectionist. Secondly, it has to develop this division of labor within its own economy. That is, it has to develop market mechanisms that create a large domestic international market. China has the big advantage because it has an enormous population, that it can create a very, very big division of labor even within its own domestic economy. And then it has to have a very high level of investment which sustains that.
For the first time in China's history, build a market-based economy in China which provides opportunities to almost everyone whoever wants to achieve a better life. So that means a more efficient resource allocation system. Number 2, I think open up is also equally important because, for example, China joined the WTO since 2002. So after that, China was completely integrated with the world economy.
We know that China is the world's most populous country and we have massive human capital. And how do you think that China's great importance to mass entrepreneurship and innovation play a role in our economic development?
In the hardcore manufacturing sectors, we made a lot of innovations. In the internet, digital economy, there's also huge amount of innovations. So a lot of people think China's growth is based on cheap labor. So that was the situation 20 years ago, not the situation today. So why could we do that? I think number 1 is huge market. So huge market, so demand creates supply. So this is one of the biggest competitiveness of Chinese economy, and it spurs huge amount of innovation. Second, you mentioned human capital. I think the key difference of today's human capital with the human capital in the past was that China is enjoying what we call a labor force dividend, not based on cheap labor, but based on engineers.
How was China able to maintain sound economic growth amid the pandemic? How was China's economy so resilient to tolerate both external and internal risks?
I would put it simply as the need to put a greater emphasis on the domestic drivers of growth. During the pandemic, it was exports, which was a very important driver, as just mentioned, because the Chinese economy was flexible enough to provide to the world whatever was needed. What I think is mainly meant by this dual circulation is to revive consumption.
While a lot of the productions outside of China was disrupted during the pandemic, China was able to provide the world with a very stable supply chain. So I think that's the strength of Chinese economy.
High-quality development was also a catchphrase during this year's annual 2 sessions. How do you see the economic development shift from quantity to quality?
The traditional pattern of economic growth based on more inputs on labor and capital, this growth could not last for 100 years in any country. And then the key issue is how to switch from a traditional pattern of growth to a new pattern of economic growth, which is, as we discussed just now, innovation-driven growth.
What is more important by this high quality is that it should be sustainable. So here I think the major difference is sustainability. And to make growth more sustainable, the transitions that started before the pandemic should continue. And by this I mean the transition from an investment to a consumption-driven growth, transition from a manufacturing to a services-driven growth. Those are all very important to maintain sustainability. Of course, sustainable growth should be productivity-driven.
A strong domestic market, continue to promote high-quality development and transform from high speed to high quality. We have to implement the new development concept, which refers to innovation, coordination, readiness, openness, and sharing. What is another important concept? Safe development. So there is a new prospect, new development concept, new development stage, new pattern about the economy. We have to open a new prospect for society as well. What is a new prospect? We will not only develop the economy, but also achieve common prosperity, which is actually a transcendental goal.